everybody, welcome back. Well, this played out pretty much as we talked about in the pre-market public video live today. And let's just talk about what we're dealing with. We have this complete meltdown after non-farm payrolls. Now, one thing that people don't know is tomorrow you are getting these revisions at 10 o'clock. A lot of people are not aware of these revisions are going to go back and can go back as far as 24. It depends how far they have done. You know, it's the government. We never really know. But 10 a.m. is a big number for tomorrow. So if you take nothing else from this, make sure you mark that down. But there's going to be a lot of little nuggets in this one because we're going to go micro, not really macro. If we look at this, we really went, nowhere. You can see this from the 10 a.m. button and then just boom, from there, the undercut, the rally back over, and just mark this bar off and you can see it. It's not really rocket science between waiting for these revisions. Here's the 10 o'clock bar. And usually you want to look at that 10 o'clock bar more than look at anything else because this is really when you start getting into what's going on hourly in, the cash session. And you can just see a double tweezer top right there, doubles. And you have the same down here as well. You have this undercut you tried to grab at the end of the day. You're kind of grinding, but you're just not really doing anything. You're bunking out and you're bunking right back into the range. It's pretty easy to always see this stuff. I will say this, you have a super tight range and the skew is to the upside because you did get out of that range. In other words, if you look at where the volume profile was the previous session to where you are now, it's super tight, which usually means you're going to have a pretty vicious move. If you look at that profile versus some of these others, you really don't have anything like this. So that usually means you're setting up, and that makes sense going into PPI, CPI, non-farm payroll revisions tomorrow, but nevertheless, that is leaning us towards the outside. At the time of recording this, you can actually even see the start of the new one, but we'll see how that plays out. You never know. But this one's in the bucket, and it is what it is. You did pop over and the value high, and there's your point of control above that. So that does bode well for bulls, but we'll see how this goes tomorrow. You're just one piece of data away from just disaster. And until we see anything different, I really think that's how you need to view it. I want to go through the basics before we get into what I think are the nuggets. You have some stocks after hours that are up 25, 30% on some news. And you had a ton of news on names today, and we should review this. But there you are, and it doesn't really get any cleaner. There's your 100-point range. It was established on Friday, and I don't think we're going anywhere near that. Now, if I take a look at the SPY, I don't know why that didn't pop in. Let's go. Here we go. I'm not going to have time to edit this, guys, so you're going to have to deal with some of the mistakes. If we take a look, shocker, I know, first time, right? If you see up here, that 650 area, I have this colored up here, and you can just see that that's really been rejected over and over again. And it's not like it's this big area. Let me just show you what I mean by that. It's not like you're hitting that over and over again. You've only hit it a couple times, but that's a massive rejection area anytime we get near this 650. So we'll see how that plays out. You can see today's bar, that just 4-hour bar right into here, and then how we acted on that. That's with the pre and the post in. If I get rid of the pre and the post, and we look at it this way, you just have a doji. But that doji undercut, stole, and then ripped, closing higher. Again, this is then telling you that we're leaning more towards the higher end on this bar, and maybe that just means we're going to test something in here. But for now, watch this 650 level. It's been a pickle. 635 seems to be where you're getting the most, hey, we're going to hold on there. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but you can see all that in here. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there's a lot to cover here. But I do want to just review some things that did happen today that I think are super important for those that are just traders. Number one, this SATS news was absolutely huge. And if you go and take the time and read the news, and for our time's sake tonight, we're going to get this out to you so you have something to deal with tomorrow and use as a guide. As always, subscribe, click all notifications. If you want to get in depth, Saturday's video is really in depth on what's going on out there. And I always do read the comments about what kind of content you want to see next. But if you look right in here, you're pretty wedged in. Now, you had this call wall up here at 80 and you closed over it. What always gets me about these bars is I never know how much is at that open. So I always really want to see if I can close over that open before I do anything. And it's just how I am. It's just one of the things that's really important to me, because when you sell and then you hardly can rally up over it, you just want to know, like, hey, how much is really there? How much is behind that? There's these areas, and that's one of them that's super important because you don't know how much these guys are dumping in there. But from the way that I say it, we haven't really tested that yet. This was huge news. You're at about a $25 billion market cap right now. They took in $8.5 billion in SpaceX stock, $8.5 billion in cash, not to mention where they were before. And I think that this is really important to get, because if you took a look at the simple things from where you are here to here, it's a 21% move. And if you look at what the market cap was before this does not constitute the entire move of that SpaceX deal. So it's hugely still discounted, which is really interesting to me. You know, you had your market cap down here, and that move, in other words, what I'm saying is you added $8.5 billion in cash, $8.5 billion in SpaceX, and you moved 21%. Your market cap is not commensurate of that kind of movement. I think up here, you're like a $25 billion company. So that's not really commensurate of that kind of investment into your company. That usually means when people start figuring this stuff out, you move higher. This is important. Let's do it. This is what's so interesting to me about these times, because there's so much information that I don't really think people understand some of it. And I saw that today with a name that we absolutely killed it on, but I'm going to walk you through this. So this is the market cap when it opens, 23.5 billion. This is the market cap when you're closed. And this is as of the close. And this is showing us exactly where it is. And I believe that would have to be like a 20% move, right? Or something like that. Okay, so there's 20%. Perfect. So what's interesting about this is you took in $8.5 billion in cash. Here's a check. Thank you very much. And then $8.5 billion in SpaceX stock. Where's the 16? Where's the $34, $35 billion move? I don't see it. Right? So why am I showing you this? Because sometimes this stuff takes a while to digest. Everybody thinks that we're in this efficient market. This market is not efficient. There's nothing efficient about what's going on here. And there's a lot of this stuff that is falling through the cracks. And the reason is because people just really don't look at the fundamental side of the market at all. They're looking at the technicals and thinking that's all they need. And institutions aren't going to rush. They're just going to sit here and go, whatever, we'll just wait. We'll just pick it up cheaper. And that's exactly what they're doing. Now, unless this is something that is going to be at a huge discount because they gave up the license, that's something else to think about. But $16 billion coming in, it's actually $17 billion. So you'd have to think the 8.5 in SpaceX, unless you think that that is worth zero, right? All right. And then you took in $8.5 billion as well in cash. Okay. The value yesterday was $19 billion. So what's everything else worth? $2 billion? Meaning if I took in $17 billion, and I'm at 19 billion. The rest of the company is worth 17 billion or 2 billion, even though they just had another multi-billion dollar deal back here. See, what I think is, I don't think people know how to value this. And usually these kinds of things are absolutely deadly and tend to go a lot higher. I keep this on your radar. I'm going to show you now one of these theories and how this works. And people don't, and you think it'd be simple, right? Like this was the valuation and people just didn't get it. And they came out and sold that one and then it ran up and people were like, oh, it's overvalued. And then the next day, here's another $17 billion. How overvalued does it really look? What else and what other licensing agreements are out there? You have to start thinking like that. So one of the other trades that we had that made a lot of sense to just get into that kind of frenzy of, give me the shiny object was this OCTO. And I don't think people truly got this. Now, if you were on the public pre-market, I walked you through this today, and I think I even laughed about it, said, here's your gift. We got in this in the community around 7. Now, just to go through these, I'm not going to pop them all in, but I just want to walk through it and then I'll walk through it on the chart what I saw. So these are just the alerts that I put out, and I'm saying it's a day trade, could be a swing trade, size accordingly because of what's going on out there. But this was it was a market cap play, just very similar to SATS. And I don't think people are getting these kinds of plays yet. And then this is us, 825, and we're up $5 from our entry, and it's 830. And these are just tags. People get notifications. Literally half free trade, do what you're comfortable with, right? You should always do what you're comfortable with, not what someone else tells you to do. By 12 o'clock, you could see the buying start to pick up, and this was perfect. So all I'm doing here, I know that 80 is my target. I can explain why 80 is the target in a second here. But if you took a look at this from the 56 level on, and you measured the depth of this, and all you have to do is use fibs to do it, you're going to get your target. You're going to get a rough target, especially when you have blue skies above you. And this target also met what the maximum market cap would be of this trade. And I'll explain that in a second. So I have this target. Mine was 80. They came out with 82.51 on the fibs, which made sense. 62, and then it just pushed. So some people will continue to add to it. Some people will scale out. You should do what you're comfortable with, right? But this was really, there was nothing that made any more sense to play than this. And you can just see it just continues and continues. And then we were up over 1,200%, which is ridiculous from our $7 entry. And, do what you want with it at that point. Now, if you want to learn how to do this, let me know, because I'm really thinking about doing a Thursday video on this, but I want you to understand exactly what happened. They came out and said in this company, which was about a $4 million market cap. So you have this company that's basically a shell, right? It's got a $4 million market cap. And they come out and say, hey, we're going to raise $250 million, and there's a million shares outstanding. I'm just going to make the math super easy here. We're going to raise $250 million, and we're going to buy this world coin because we care about the world, right? So they're going to do a PP, private placement, okay, because they care about the world. And 20 million is going to be a kicker for BMNR. And what we're going to do is we're going to have that guy, Dan Ives, oversee it because he's got cool pants, right? Because that makes perfect sense to everybody. So here we go. And so this is where you're at. This is what you have. So you have like a fever of everybody that thought they were going to miss out. But the bottom line is it's a market cap play because they're taking a shell. And when they take that shell, they're shoving $250 million into it. Now, the question is, what are they getting for their $250 million? Are they getting one for one? Meaning, does $250 million get you one share? Does it get you 2 shares, 3 shares, 4 shares? It's not always just one. And this is the misnomer. So what you do is you take the shares and you divide the amount of shares by the amount of money that they're injecting into this thing. And then you overlay that and you will get a new market cap. The ultimate high 1-for-1 market cap was $80. So when we were buying this today, I was telling people, oh, it could be $70, $80. It can get into the high 70s, low 80s. And people are like, well, it makes 0 sense. No, it makes perfect sense from a private placement standpoint. Why would cash trade at a discount? It wouldn't. It's called a reverse IPO, but essentially what they're doing is just like stuffing this thing full of dollars so that they can go buy WorldCoin, which makes perfect sense to everybody. So just keep that in mind. If there's enough interest in this, and I think there will be, comment below and I'll do a full video on it for Thursday that you guys can watch how I actually do the math. And then you can just screenshot the math and do it for yourself in the future. This would, if you understood this, it's why I bought BMNR, even though I knew it was a pig. It's why I bought SBET, knowing that they were going to fall apart. Because it's not that you're going to recreate the world. You're not recreating the pencil. Now I sound like the old man yelling at the cloud. But what you're doing is you're taking a bunch of cash and you're shoving it into something that has no market cap, right? And then you're putting a pretty bow on it. In this case, you're getting Dan Ives in his fancy pants. Here you got Tom Lee saying, we're going to recreate the world. And then, they're all selling stock to you and you're wondering what you're holding. So keep that in mind. These are boom bust cycles. They're great long and short. I actually did better on the short side in BMNR, and I'm sure that there'll be a huge opportunity once they start shoving that WorldCoin into that other thing. I'm sure that'll be a huge one too. These guys were going to defend this at NAV. If you remember, if anybody wants to go look at what the NAV is and ask them why they're not defending it, go right ahead. But now you're back down to that 15 level. So understand what you're dealing with and just don't be there when the music stops. Usually the music stops is when they start buying the coin. Remember, if they're selling you their paper to buy something else, maybe you should just buy something else, the thing that they're buying, right? That just makes sense, doesn't it? After hours, NBIS got a great deal with Microsoft, multi-billions of dollars over 5 years. I did not have this because currently I'm in Miami and we lost power, which is just absolutely fantastic. But nevertheless, it happens. So we have power back, and that's why this video is going out a little bit late right now. But see this? See how you broke? I would read the terms of this agreement. This is a very long-term agreement, and it's what I would refer to as painting the tape with good news. So, when you have an agreement, it's multi-billions of dollars, and there's all these levers to it. By the end of it, how much is up front? Is there enough to buy a Slurpee? You got to really get into the details here. Obviously, it's a really good thing for them, but you really got to dive into the details. The devil's in the details when they paint the tape like this. And if you see it come in tomorrow, then you know that you have an issue. Most notable that I thought today, yes, NVIDIA, I'm going to do it. But what was notable about this was the 55. And I just want to go through this so people get it. You came right up here to 171, tried to get over it, and you couldn't. And you rejected at the end of the day. You have a 1222 cross, and you rejected it. Take a look at Microsoft here. Okay, this did not get better. Get better. What do you have here? You have a doji. Dojis are what? Signs of uncertainty. I have a 22, a 12, and a 55. What are they doing? Well, I've got the 22 pointing down, the 12 pointing down, and the 55 sitting here about to have a 22-55 cross. All those people that get you to get really nervous around that death cross? And they're all like, oh, it's a death cross, right? And they all freak out over it. Yeah, that's not the one they should really be freaking out over when you look at this. By the time you have a death cross, the majority of this stuff is pretty much already done, right? Where you want to freak out or not, you don't have to freak out. But the difference is a 1222 cross, and then you're over on a pretty decent percentage of around 20% off of your 200-day moving average. It's a 1222 cross, and it's when you're about 20% off of your 200-day moving average. You're not 20% off of that. So you're only about 10. So it's not the end of the world. But if you had to say, do you have problems here? Well, I mean, I've seen better. Like, that's not great. You broke all of them and you're going sideways. So there are these names that were big flyers, and they're just riding the lightning here. Now, there could be a reason for this, and we'll get to that in a second. But even things like Reddit that are supposed to lead, this is nasty stuff. We're going to rally, and then they just pull the kibosh at the end of the day. Now, the kibosh is not great when they do this. So watch this, and we'll go to this on a regular so you can see it. So you're trying to rally, you fail, and you try to get up, and this is what you wind up with. Now, I'll tell you what's the most damaging about this. Most people will look at this and not understand that this is actually a massive negative divergence, because they're not going to understand this move to this, and they'll say, well, it corresponds. See that close right there? See how that close coincides perfectly with that open? What are wicks? Wicks are price rejection. So I do this in an advanced RSI class that I promised that I would put out in the video that I never did. And what's important about this is the fact that you got to the same exact level that you got before. And what happened? You got Matumbo'd. You need to watch this, because this is setting up to be something really nasty. This needs to get it together. And I don't see that. I see like 206, 207. Now, it could also be NFP revision jitters, but this isn't setting up right. And some of these things that are supposed to be leading, Google, they might come in and start taking this tomorrow. Watch 230 on this. This is something that we have to watch. Even this IREN that was setting up that I bought at the end of the day. I have a beautiful hammer right here, right on a perfect line, and it got over that hammer, and then I just got Matumbo'd. And we're seeing more and more of this. Now, it could be that we're going into PPI, which is awesome. We get PPI before CPI this time. It's actually a really good thing. And we are rejecting key levels, but we're not getting completely, utterly smashed by it. So you have a huge call wall here on AVGO at that 350. You're not getting kiboshed. I did have one comment. Someone asked about me doing something on taxes and showing you how to do taxes, or taxes that you get hammered on. It's not my wheelhouse. I'm not a tax guy. I hire tax guys. What I will do, if there's enough interest, is I have people that I could probably bring on in like a special episode and interview them on what they should do and how you should go about that. But you guys need professionals. Like, you don't want to be taking stuff. I would have to get like an actual professional on here to talk about how to set up the LLC, if that's what you're asking me about, or how to, mitigate, or how to, set this up properly. But you need somebody. You need a real person that is actually a CPA, not just some dude on YouTube. I can't stress that enough. You listen to some of these people, it's terrifying. Anyway, you can see that 580 range right in here. Keep your eye on this tomorrow. Matumbo, over and over again. And I would watch this. One thing I will say too on this news, it does make me think that when I start looking at something like this ASTS, you got absolutely destroyed pre and post, but look at how this rebounded right off our level, right into that. It was perfect. It was actually beautiful the way that this thing rallied up, retested that level, held that level, and then went forward. Oh, if you are on the list to get into the community, there is 5 days, and then I'm going to close enrollment for 30 days. Please keep that in mind. That is it.